Podcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good morning, everybody. You have tuned into DP Solutions webinar, Phishing, Deepfakes, and How to Trust Online Info. My name is Jill Rose. I am your webinar organizer and today's moderator. We're going to give everyone just a few minutes to log back in, and then we will kick things off. Okay, looks like we've got several people logging in right now. I'm going to go ahead and start things off. Just want to start with a few housekeeping tips. All attendees have been placed on mute just to cut down on any background noise. But as usual, if you have any questions, feel free to use the question box and type them out during the presentation. We'll also open it up for Q&A at the end. We'll also be recording today's session, so that will be available on our website later today or tomorrow. And I will be emailing all attendees a copy of the recording. With that, I'm going to go ahead and kick things off today to Mr. Ben Schmerler. He's DP Solutions Director of Strategic Operations. Ben, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Jill, and thanks everybody for attending today. We decided to talk about these topics today. You know, we've all it's one of my favorite / not favorite things to talk about because it's so pervasive. But right now, and you'll see as we go through, it's getting even worse. And as we have a very decentralized team, it'll be really important to touch on these subjects. So we'll go through the content in the slide deck today. We're going to talk about a number of things, and then at the end, we'll do a little Q&A. So just a few quick facts about where we stand right now. So in terms of how COVID-19 and the working from home situation and sort of the interruption to business is concerned, a few quick facts about threats. One is there's already an Android ransomware dubbed COVID Lock that comes from a hoax claiming to provide virus tracking information. So basically a fake app that said, hey, you want to find out about the spread of the virus in your area? Click here, you know, add this app, and then all of a sudden you have a ransomware on Android phones. This is certainly not the only example or the only example we'll see, but just to point out that this stuff is coming right now. There are, in terms of phishing and how phishing is concerned, you'll see that a lot of the phishing attempts that are being made right now, the attacks, a lot of them are using the virus as a platform to get people to make bad clicks. You know, the virus is the premise to get people to go through. And why are they doing that? Well, I mean, fundamentally speaking, people react, they lower their defenses and react very quickly to things that they have urgency about. And think about this in your own life. If someone told you that a loved one was ill or that something crazy was happening in your area, you might react first and think second, and they're counting on that. So again, right now they're using the virus to get that kind of reaction from you. According to Barracuda, a statistic I found, phishing emails have increased by 600% since the end of February. So right at the end of February, that's when the spread started happening here in the United States in terms of public awareness, and I think it became a much bigger issue. You saw that's when the stock market started to have issues and states started shutting down. Phishing emails have increased dramatically. You know, anyone can guess why that is, but I mean, I think it's safe to say it's because more people are working remotely, more people are engaged electronically right now. You know, bandwidth consumption and things are up, so we're more attached to our devices than we were before. And so naturally, we're all targets. So again, the focus is on the individual to be more vigilant than ever before, especially because we're decentralized right now. Think about being in an office where you have, you know, maybe you have a few dozen people even in a small business working together, and you see something weird and you could just turn to the person in the office next door and say, hey, did you see this? You know, that kind of culture. We don't really have that as much at the moment. And so we have to really think for ourselves and be even more skeptical. So today, here's a few things we're going to go over. So we're going to revisit trending phishing attacks. So some of the few things that we're seeing in terms of phishing right now. We're going to talk about robocalls, phishing, whatever you want to call it, basically the phone scams that are occurring. Again, these are getting actually more significant now, these spam calls. Charity scams online and legitimate ways to help. Speaking for myself, I know this is something that I'm concerned with right now. There's a lot of people who need help getting access to food. People who are dependent on public services or their jobs are hungry. There are people needing access to medical equipment, PPE, so on and so forth. And there's a lot of charities out there where you can support them, and we want to, but there's also people taking advantage of it, and obviously in a very sick way to try and make a buck off of your generosity. So we need to talk about that. Deep fakes and digital manipulation. So we were already going to talk about deep fakes a little bit as a trend earlier in the year, but a deep fake is basically these very sophisticated attempts to trick you, and that's picking up pace. And it's getting even more accessible, and we're going to get into it. Identifying reliable sources of information. So regardless of the technology you use and viruses and ransomware and stuff like that, it's really important that we know when we get on a device and we're connecting electronically or we want to find out about something, that the information we find is reliable. And how do we vet good stuff from bad stuff? So I'll talk about a few things to look out for. This is obviously a very complex topic, but I think it's really important that people understand ways to get legitimate information, especially online. And then we'll do some Q&A. So a few trends in phishing, and hopefully you guys can see this, but here's a few examples just on the left of a few kinds of phishing attempts that we're seeing right now. So you can see I quoted here the CDC Health Alert Network, which is something that does not exist. Basically, people utilizing the Centers for Disease Control, a trusted organization that many Americans and actually people around the world rely on for looking for viral outbreaks and such. There are a lot of emails going out about cases in your town and new actions from your governor and so on and so forth. These are happening all the time and very easy to fall for. It may not surprise you that when I'm doing phishing tests these days, these are the types of emails I've been aping a lot, and I'm catching a lot of people because we're very vulnerable to this stuff. Personalized healthcare message alerts. So, hey Ben, this is from some medical doctor in your area, and we have an alert to a possible transmission of COVID. You may have been in contact with someone. We have sent you this email. Click here to learn more. That's generally not a thing that happens, but in real life, obviously there's contact tracing and things like that, but you're not going to get a bunch of emails saying to click here to find out about all the people you touched with COVID. But this stuff exists right now in terms of phishing. Company policy emails calling for significant changes. So somebody in your office might say, hey, this is the big boss at your office, and we have a new policy calling for how you work from home, and click here to find more. And obviously people are very oftentimes very urgently trying to hear from people that they work with, and so they fall for these policy scams. There's related fake emails from nonprofits asking for support or money. So we'll talk about the charity stuff further, but you'll also see things like, hey, this is Salvation Army, just as one example, and we're raising money for food service for poor people, and click here to learn more. And it's not actually Salvation Army, it's somebody else. Travel related scams, including stuck friends. So you can see that one of those examples is, hey, I flew to France, and after that we had the European travel ban, and I'm not here, and I need you to send me some money so that I can buy a croissant or something. And there's a lot of these things looking to get money, and when people aren't around and you don't see each other, there's some of that stuff. This kind of scam has existed for a while. but you actually see it ticking back up a little bit because it is a little bit more plausible at the moment. The point about all this, let me go back real quick, I'm sorry. The point about all of this is that we need to be, anytime we see these things that are very urgent, that seem related to the virus, we need to be very skeptical, ask around, double check things, do everything we would normally do, but even be more vigilant, because I think the threat vector is actually higher. You know, I think I've been saying for a while that phishing is getting more and more and more significant. It is the attacks on the individual are getting worse. The technology is really strong, but if people click through things or offer up voluntary information, there's not a whole lot you can do about that. And if we're having, as Barracuda said, a 600% increase in phishing volume, we're that much more vulnerable and that much more likely to fall for it. We're going to pivot a little bit. I want to talk about robocalls. This is very typical. They're very much exploiting COVID-19. They use the same themes, but with a spin for the virus. One call that's been popping up a lot is, and I think that I heard about this from the Federal Trade Commission, is the quote-unquote Social Security Administration. So, you know, a lot of vulnerable people are getting benefits from SSA right now, disability, the elderly, et cetera. They're very reliant, and they're getting calls that are saying things like, unless you click here, your benefits have expired, or due to coronavirus, you're due to some extra benefits, and click here, or respond to this call, or press 1 to hear more, or whatever the message is. So again, it's another urgent organization, an organization that many people rely on. So you need to watch out for that. Medicare, insurance, coronavirus free testing. So there's a lot of scams with calls saying, hey, a drive-through COVID-19 test is in your area. You don't need a doctor's appointment, just show up. Or to get your appointment, press 1 now, that kind of thing. Same thing with Medicare. Your insurance provider has offered you free swab testing at a local patient first. Press 1 to set an appointment, whatever. Another big one is SBA loan scams or other stimulus-related scams. So both for small businesses who are looking to get the SBA loans that the government announced, or people trying to get checks or direct deposits from the stimulus. There are a ton of scams regarding this, especially considering the challenges that have existed bureaucratically getting the SBA loans to people. So people are even more vulnerable to it. Another Social Security Administration scam that I've heard, by the way, is the scam that due to fraudulent activity, your Social Security number has been suspended or something like that, which is kind of a ridiculous thing. But that's another one that's been popping up. This is a big one. The one challenge too with robocalls and phishing is that the carriers, the cell phone carriers in particular, are getting better at blocking, or at least using like a caller ID thing to say that these calls are spam or risky calls, but they're not perfect. I mean, these scammers get new numbers all the time. It's very easy to port numbers over, so you just got to be skeptical all the time. And what makes it even worse too is that when we're decentralized, a lot of us are getting more phone calls than we used to. You know, we're checking in with our people, and we don't know necessarily who that number is on the other line, so we're more likely to answer. And so if you do answer the call and you do find that you're getting these scam messages, the best thing to do is just hang up or ignore the call entirely. If if people want to sometimes play games with them or challenge the people, don't even engage, because you're only setting yourself up for future targeting. That's weird. Charity scams. So I want to talk about this real quick. As I said, there's a lot of scams out there. You can see social media, some from the absurd, from the China dog meat farm, which is kind of silly, to things like money that goes to programs, etc. And to be honest, what's weird is that there are so many legitimate charities and so many people of need right now. I mean, the demand is incredibly high It's very sad watching the news and hearing about so many people who are unemployed right now, as well as people who are food insecure, etc. And since there's so much need, there are unfortunately people who follow that need to commit crime. So what can be done to separate scams from legitimate charity, and how can you respond? First is documentation. Any charity that is willing to provide you or to ask you for money or any kind of donation should have very publicly available information about whether they're a 501c3, what their IRS filings are, so on and so forth. It should all be available on a website. These things should be viewable. There's no privacy. There's no reason they shouldn't be able to show you this stuff. So if somebody calls you up on the phone, for example, and says, "Hey, I'm doing this food drive, and can you give us $100 or something?" and you're taking this call, and you ask them questions like, "Well, what's your tax ID, or what's your this?" and they can't answer those questions, well, I wouldn't give them money. I'd ask them to send you the information. I'd ask them to verify this stuff. They should have clear mission statements about where their money goes and what they do with it. Um, there are a lot of organizations that talk about themes regarding their charity. We help people who are out of work during COVID-19. What does that mean? Are they helping them with food? Are they helping them with rent or health care or something like that? What is their mission statement? Why are they doing it? And what gives them credibility to talk about these things in the first place? CharityNavigator.org is a fantastic resource that you can use. You could look up charities. They will give you explicit instructions about where to communicate with them. So if someone's trying to pretend that they're one of these legitimate charities, you could run through the proper channels and actually get to where you're going. So I would really encourage you, if you're going to work with a charity, to look them up on CharityNavigator.org. And as always, you need to make sure, if you decide you're going to engage and you feel you've done all these checks, you've looked at them on Charity Navigator, you've seen documentation, you know who you're dealing with is legitimate, you're doing things on the up and up, make sure all those financial transactions are handled in a secure fashion. Don't read your credit card number over the phone. Don't go to sites that don't use encryption when doing the financial transmissions. Don't, and I'd be very reluctant to use like cryptocurrency and things like that for most mainstream charities, because they don't need cryptocurrency, and you can't really track that stuff. Make sure just that you do these things the same way you would in terms of things like shopping on Amazon, etc. I'm going to pivot again. We're going to talk now about deepfakes and digital manipulation. So this is kind of a new and trending thing, and you can see we've got a few graphics here on the board. I actually wasn't sure about the weird alien one. That's Bezos and Elon Musk, as well as some Obama stuff. So we'll talk a little about that. And in fact, well, let me get through this, and I'll bring up another point real quick. So a deepfake is using existing images and other media to create fake likenesses. And I say other media because this can be done with audio too. You can make things. It's not just that it looks like Obama or the mouth moves like Obama, but it actually sounds like him during this stuff. Sometimes it's just for a laugh. I mean, obviously, I don't think too many people are going to be fooled by a alien head with pulsating veins that is Jeff Bezos. I don't think anyone's going to say, "Oh my God, Jeff Bezos is an alien." I don't think people are going to fall for that stuff. Or if anyone's watching right now on ESPN, the Michael Jordan Last Dance documentary, which is really good, they have like a little promo that enters, and it's the anchor Kenny Mayne on SportsCenter, and it's all in that late 90s motif in terms of how it looks, and it's him talking, and it's him from 20 years ago, but he's talking about how in 20 years we're going to have a Michael Jordan documentary, and it's extremely convincing. So, I mean, even if you're not into basketball, I would encourage you at least try and look up that promo from ESPN, because it's remarkable. I think it's State Farm too. It's remarkable about how well you can do this stuff. And so again, this is why we need to be skeptical, because it's so easy to do. because sometimes this stuff's used for malicious intentions. I mean, in the case of the Obama stuff, oftentimes people are using this to create fake political messages, which can be obviously very damaging. It can be used to gain confidence in something that they might not otherwise do. I mean, consider the charity stuff. Imagine a deep fake of say, a Bill Gates, who is known for his work across the globe fighting illnesses and such, especially in Africa. And you see this video of him looking like he's asking you to donate to some charity, and it's not actually him. It's just somebody who took a bunch of public clips of Bill Gates, video and audio, and spliced a bunch of stuff together using, off-the-shelf products to create a scam. This really does exist, and unfortunately, I think it's going to get worse. It's really not new. People have been manipulating photography and audio for years, but as I said, it's pretty easy now. If you have a decent workstation with hardware that you can buy at Best Buy or Amazon or someplace like that, you can do that, and have the know-how. You can do this stuff. It could be extremely convincing. As I mentioned, the Obama stuff. Another great one is, if you look it up, Nick Offerman, the comedian who was on the show Parks and Recreation, there's a Full House video. It's really funny, and it's the opening for Full House, except all the people in the car are Nick Offerman with his big bushy mustache, and it's remarkably convincing. Again, this is just so powerful and can be used, again, for good stuff, but also for bad stuff. This synthesizing Obama program, this was in 2017. It meshed video and audio tracks together to try to get him to say things that were never actually said. And this was an academic program done just to point out how easy this can be done. This was 3 years ago. And as anybody knows about the speed of development in technology, if 3 years ago, some college students were able to do this thing as part of a study, what does that mean about crime and bad actors who have more incentive, more money, and now 3 years more sophisticated technology to do this stuff? Oh, it says my screen share is paused, Jill. One sec. Sorry about that, everybody. Why does it say? Bear with me 1 sec.
We're still seeing you.
Oh, you are?
Mm-hmm.
It says screen sharing is paused, so I don't know why that is. Sorry about that. Give me 1 second, everyone. Pardon me. I have to scroll through again. There was like a little window that popped up, like it's a tiny little thing, and it says that it's pausing my screen share. But if you can see it, then I'm just going to ignore it. I'm sorry, getting back to the subject matter, finding reliable sources of information. So in general, I've talked about all this terrible stuff, all this phishing content. I've talked about deep fakes and robocalls, so on and so forth. And the reason all of this stuff works as a crime is that people have this desire to get answers. We want to know about infection rates in our area. We want to know about new treatments and things that are coming. We want to know the good, bad, and ugly, but we want to know the real stuff. And so we need to be able to find good sources so that when these scams come to us, we don't flip out, that we don't react in the ways that we wouldn't otherwise. And I feel like the only way we can do that is knowing where to get good information and sort of educating ourselves as we go. So when this baloney comes up, that we can respond to it accordingly and just ignore it. So for some reliable sources specifically about COVID-19, I would generally start with CDC.gov, the Federal Trade Commission, their website, the Department of Health and Human Services, trusted media outlets and experts. So your insurance company, maybe your health insurance company, if you want to find out about your personal treatment. Mainstream media sources that will vet things. And I understand if people don't like specific media companies, but you can look up more than one source and try and find a pattern, or look at the source within the source. If you see something in the New York Times, find out who said it in the New York Times, and then look into their information. Unfortunately, there have been interviews on mainstream television shows or online sites and things where someone purported themselves to be an expert on what is happening, and then when they vetted the source of this information, it was found that they weren't who they said they were. Their credentials weren't quite as good as they thought. So whenever you're doing this, you got to double check and go through all the reliable sources first. Social media in general is full of unreliable information, and social media is, to be honest, driving me a little nuts right now because you see a lot of people saying things like, I heard that the stimulus money that we get is going to be taxed and that we need to start putting the money away, which is not true. I've heard that Governor Hogan is going to do so-and-so, and I read this Twitter thing. Also, a lot of the times not true at all. So-and-so, if we share this thing around, so-and-so is going to make a donation to some charity. I mean, these things are just very unreliable in general. And, in the little graphic, you can see next to Patrick Dempsey, just on Twitter, for example, you can see the verified check mark. Just because, a verified person on Twitter is basically verifying that they are who they say they are. If it says a check mark next to Patrick Dempsey, that is Patrick Dempsey's account.
Hey, Ben, we're actually still seeing the deep fake slide.
Oh, really?
So I can share the presentation on my screen and see if that helps.
Oops. Yeah, let me try. Why don't you do that? And in the meantime, let me see. I'm really not sure why this is happening, to be honest. Yeah, why don't you go ahead and share, and we'll go that way.
Okay.
Sorry, everybody.
Okay.
I'm on the 9th slide.
There we go.
That is really weird. I've never had that before. Okay, so hopefully this pops up. So as I mentioned, you want to talk to the experts, and you really can't trust social media. Look for the verified mark. Although even if they have the little verified check mark, that little blue check on Twitter, somebody could hack those accounts. So if all of a sudden, again, using Bill Gates as an example, Bill Gates, his Twitter account starts saying all sorts of weird stuff like, everything's okay, everybody just go outside and start partying. Maybe somebody took advantage of his account, although maybe not likely with Bill Gates. So just be mindful of that stuff on social media. There are embedded advertisements that disguise malware that will use COVID-19 themes. So be careful when you're on these sites that say CDC alert about COVID-19, click here to learn more. You might think it's a trusted source, but really it's a ad that is embedded with malware. And again, unfortunately, the way ads work on the internet, these things aren't as vetted as you might think. There's billions and billions of ads on websites, and they're not being scrubbed all the time to make sure that the people who place them are who they say they are. So be very careful when you click on those ads. Make sure they end up at the site you think they are. Or better yet, don't go to the ad, go to the site. If it says CDC alert on this ad and you're on, eBay, maybe just go to cdc.gov. Don't click on the link if you're curious about what the CDC says. Unless you're 100% certain, it's worth checking on information that may be meaningful and cause you to act. So you always want to make sure that you're really certain when you make your clicks. If you don't feel confident, you probably shouldn't click it. Most things are not all that permanent. Emails can be resent. Other websites can be revisited. Attachments can be resent, so on and so forth. You'd rather deal with those kinds of inconveniences than the inconveniences of identity theft or credit card fraud or ransomware or any other kinds of fraud that exist out there. So we really want to be careful. So to wrap it up before we get into Q&A, we really need to prepare for a serious increase in fraud and cybercrime as our team is decentralized. This is already happening, and I expect that we're going to talk a little bit more in the future about the new normal and what work's going to be like as things hopefully calm down. But I think the increase in fraud and cybercrime is here to stay. And we need to really put the onus on the end user and the individual to make smart decisions and communicate with their team when they are not sure what's going on. It's really more critical than ever to exercise skepticism. There's so many productivity and security products out there. Like if you want to think about all the various antivirus, anti-malware, personal firewalls, VPNs, secure Wi-Fi routers, all that other stuff. They're all out there, and there's great products that can really harden your system, if you will. But they really don't protect from everything. If somebody pretends to be my boss, Karen Shell, and sends me an email and says, Ben, I want you to do this today, and then I go ahead and do it, falling for it when it's not really Karen, there isn't a whole lot with technology that is going to prevent me, the individual, from making that bad decision. That protection has to come from within. And so we really need people to be careful and care about this stuff. When in doubt, communicate with your peers and be careful. There's going to be a blog published soon, or a video published soon, where one of the things I talk about is that we can't allow technology to replace communication and management. Technology reports and monitoring and stuff like that is going to give you an incomplete picture always. Doing personal check-ins, having discussions with people, going back and forth, using your phone, using Teams conferences, using all these great tools that are out there to actually engage with people even when we're not together, are very powerful, and we should utilize them. I say we're a decentralized team in terms of people working from home, but we don't have to treat ourselves as a decentralized team if we're working together, if we're having our regular check-ins, if we're having our discipline and our actions to be able to create the kind of communication levels we would have if we were just sitting in the office next to one another. So I think that's really important, and I don't want people to forget that. While you guys get your questions in and Jill goes through it, I'll just talk real quick. We're going to have late May, our next monthly webinar is going to be how to maintain control of your company data in the era of COVID-19. So deploying, maintaining, and utilizing file storage and sync apps responsibly. So, one thing we want to be careful about is that people are working from home. They may be using personally owned devices in some cases. You don't have direct control over what they do day to day, and your data is flowing back and forth between maybe your office, 10 different people's homes, a data center with Microsoft, etc. And how do we control that? How do we use this stuff responsibly? How do we make sure that we don't breach data by being irresponsible? We're going to talk a little bit about that. And I believe also, this isn't quite ready for a full announcement yet, we're going to try and do something in maybe the early or middle part of May regarding new normal workplace adaptations. So we got to work out the details on that. I'm really not sure what it's going to be yet, but stay tuned. Check out our LinkedIn, our social media, everything that we do to learn more about that event coming in the future. And with that, I'm going to turn back to Jill. Jill, do we have any questions?
Yes, we do. But before we do that, I'm going to try to make you the presenter again, see if that works.
Okay. One sec. I have to grab the PowerPoint.
Apologize for the little technical difficulties. And I know you guys are reviewing the presenter version, but I didn't want to click anything and mess it up again. So I just kept it on that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, sorry about that. I don't really know what happened. I'm honestly not sure. This is the first time it's ever happened.
Okay. Well, let's just start with our first question. What is different if an employee is breached on their work from home computer versus an on-site computer?
That's a good question, and the answer is that it's very likely to be different in some way. Why don't we start with we can list a few similarities and differences. So one difference is that the extent of the nature of the breach may be more difficult to discern, right? If you don't have control over that personally owned device, and you don't know what data exists on it or what's been logged on it or so on and so forth, it's going to be a lot harder to know the extent of the damage. Furthermore, there are things in terms of control that you don't know about, like how far has someone been into this machine? Have they compromised accounts or just a device? It's going to be much harder to know that. But things that are similar, there's probably more things that are similar about it, in the sense that chances are, if you've been dealing with data, it doesn't really matter what machine you're using, whether it's a work PC or a home PC, a mobile device, etc. You're probably subject to the same data breach laws and the same liabilities that you would in any case. Another issue is that I think with work from home devices is that unless you have a good incident response plan and good awareness from your people, those incidents may not be discovered as quickly. So I'd really encourage everybody to make sure that people know how to report incidents, what to do if they suspect an incident, that these things need to be treated urgently, et cetera, because if something happens on a home PC, we may not know about it, especially if that home PC is being used perhaps by another person, which I really don't recommend if you're going to be dealing with sensitive data on it, or sharing accounts or things like that. The specific thing in terms of how it varies is how it changes is obviously going to be very dependent on your own system, the type of data you have, your own compliance standards, so on and so forth. But we can have further discussion about that on a case-by-case basis.
Okay, great. All right, our next question is, what new threats do you anticipate coming down the pipeline?
It's an excellent question. I mean, so the way I look at this is that I don't know specifically how this is going to happen, but here's the sort of logic I would use, and I would encourage anyone to use. And this is sort of how I come up with doing phishing tests and stuff too, which is that the people who commit cybercrime and fraud and all this other stuff, they're following the trends. They're looking for the easiest and cheapest and most relevant things. It's why you don't see, I mean, look, nobody sees any Y2K scams anymore, because Y2K was 20 years ago, although I heard there's a 2038 weird Y2K thing, I don't even know. But anyway, the point is, you don't see those scams anymore because they're not really that relevant. You don't see, you probably don't see things like this year. I would expect, maybe as we approach the election in November, I would expect to see things like scams about elections and, hey, click here to get your online ballot. You can vote today for president or something like that. And the truth is it's just going to follow trends and follow things that people care about. So probably as we get closer to summer and start opening back up, there's going to be scams regarding that. Click here to find out how the government is providing cash to bring people back into the office or some baloney like that. If you follow the news, at least a little bit, I know some people, it's hard to follow the news in general, especially right now, but if you follow the news and think about what the big trends are, you want to think by extension, how would people manipulate this stuff to create attacks? And I'm not really all that surprised that we see a COVID lock Android ransomware about tracking the virus in your area. I'm not really surprised that we see scams about, click here to find out the status of your stimulus payment. This is exactly what would happen. It's exactly what happened when, for example, the Obamacare healthcare markets opened up, the websites opened up, and there would be scams that say, hey, click here to join the marketplace or something like that, because that's what was on people's minds at the time, and that's where people go. So I would expect primarily that. One thing, I encourage everybody, we're always in our office, and when we communicate to our clients and use social media, we're always trying to educate when we see new scams out there. And again, when I run tests, the tests are trying to ape the things you see right now, which again, right now is a lot of COVID-19 stuff, a lot of stimulus stuff, and that'll just maintain.
Okay, excellent. We did have one more question come in. Are phishing and other scams only done through email?
No, I mean, obviously not. I mean, There are scams that start with email and turn actually physical, like, hey, let us know if you're home so we can come. I've seen, unfortunately, a scam supposedly. I mean, obviously, I've not seen this personally, so I don't want to speak to the efficacy of it, but you've heard about the idea that a free mask giveaway, just give us your address, and then somebody shows up and does something else, or this is the health department coming to your office, to your home, or the really obnoxious utility providers and stuff like that. But it's not limited to just email. You think about text messages. That's a really easy way to deploy these scams right now. Think about direct mail. If you're isolated, why not? If you think you have a good enough target, why not even send them a mailer? I don't know if that's something that's actively happening right now, but I guess if you thought it was worth it, that would be the type of thing that could happen too. It's not just limited to email. I would expect, you see it in social media messages, Facebook and LinkedIn, tons and tons of scams happening on these sites, especially well, I was going to say especially Facebook, but I'm seeing a lot of it on LinkedIn right now too. So really anywhere where you have a point of contact with someone, especially when that point of contact can be hidden or anonymous, which social media is, I think is a potential vector for these kinds of attacks to occur.
All right, great. And I don't see any new questions coming in, so I think that is it, and we can maybe wrap up.
All right, great. Yeah, thanks everybody for attending. I really appreciate it. I hope this was informative for you. We're always looking for new ways to help and educate. So if there's anything you want to see in the future, by all means, send us suggestions. We want to speak to things that matter to you. If there are questions you want to share online, feel free to contact me. You got my email address right there. We'll be happy to answer those offline. And yeah, and contact and connect again for our future events. Really appreciate it. See y'all later, and be safe out there.
Absolutely. Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.